They took your name, your land, your language, but not your legacy. Reclaim it at AfricanAncestry.com.
From what I understand, you had experience of meeting Assata Shakur in Cuba, right? Were you able to have a conversation? What was the whole interaction like?
Absolutely, yes. I was able to meet with and talk and to be in community with two sisters. One well-known, Mama Assata Shakur, who was our amazing freedom fighter, and also Mama Nahanda Abiodun, who was also a political exile. She recently passed away, but she was someone who was indicted for liberating Assata Shakur from prison. So the comrades that are Nahandas were in prison, but she actually also escaped and was in Cuba, as well as Assata, who was someone who was freed from prison. And so we were just blessed, I want to say it was 1998, to go to the World Youth Festival in Cuba, in Havana, Cuba, with hundreds of young people from the United States, but tens of thousands from around the world. And our delegation within the U.S. delegation, which was the Malcolm X grassroots movement, we got our own, meetings with elders there and people who had supported Black liberation movements in the past. And Assata and Nahanda, who we were like celebrating, cheering, giving them a standing ovation, they said, "We love this and we appreciate this, but our comrades are still locked up. They're still imprisoned for freeing us, or for Nahanda making sure she didn't get incarcerated alongside of them. And if you really want to celebrate us and to love us, work to free our political prisoners." And for many of us, we had already been doing some political prisoner work. We remembered Geronimo Pratt had gotten out of prison maybe just a few years before that. For like really young people when Nelson Mandela got out, I think in like 91. So we were like already excited about that. But that charge from those, elders, freedom fighters, it put a different fire in the belly, right? And that's when the Black August Hip Hop Project was conceived of. The two people who led it was my husband, Monifa Bandele, and Baye Adolfo from our group. And we all then, it became like a central thing that we did every year during Black August. So Black August was a tradition that came out of the California prison system to celebrate people like George Jackson and Qatari, to memorialize them. Every August, the prisoners would fast, they would study, would work out, there'd be no fights, they didn't engage in anything antisocial. It was a month of discipline to honor their fallen freedom fighters. And so we were like, this is perfect. Take this and do something that's cultural, because we know what our folks want to hear, and embed in that the principles of Black August from out of the prison system. Teach them about Attica, because New York and the Attica Rebellion is linked also to Black August. People don't know, it was like right after. And then also talk about those political prisons that are still in. And it was widely successful. We went back to Cuba several times with our Black August delegation. And one time we took Common with us. And then when he got back, he wrote Song for Assata. So while some young people had read her biography, we know a lot of people didn't read no biography. That put her story on a whole nother level, to where people were like, oh yeah, I know that's a Common song. That's that lady that's in, some people say, oh, it's Tupac's godmother, true kinda. And she has this whole story, because that Shakur family is a cadre in the movement. It really popularized her and allowed us to fight to free those political prisoners that were connected to her case, like Mutulu Shakur, like Sekou Odinga, like Sundiata Acoli, who was arrested at the same time as her, is now home with his family.
I'm not sure if you had this conversation with her, but I always wonder, people who really like sacrificed and fought, how do they view current day Black people?
Yeah, I think it's hard because they were away for so long, and they were away during a time when the vibes were just different. So when Herman Bell and Jalil Muntaqim recently got out, now maybe 5 years ago and 6 years ago respectively, smartphones. They had been in prison this was before the Assata, the incident on the New Jersey Turnpike in '73. You know, they were like young men, and now they came out and they're like, you know, learning this thing. But a couple of things were powerful to them, including Sekou Odinga, who got out right around the time of the Ferguson uprising, is that they had a lot of hope in young people. You know, interestingly enough, they're not like a lot of other elders where they're like, down in us, y'all ain't doing nothing, da 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 da. They actually say, we didn't know what we were doing either. We were building the plane while flying it, you know, and we made some mistakes. And, you know, a lot of them tell us things like, you can get ahead of the people. Can't do that. Because then you look back, they're like, we don't know what you're doing over there. That wasn't for us. So they talk about these mistakes and they share these lessons, and they want to still be in it, you know, as these mentors. And they have critiques, you know, that, like the Colin Kaepernick. They're like, why that brother didn't get more support and things like that. But they realize it's a different time, you know, so they just offer lessons from their time. And they tell us, they said, but y'all working in a whole different landscape.
Yeah, and I think speaking to numerous elders, especially some who get disillusioned,
Yeah,
they don't understand their work wasn't for their time. I think we struggle with that. Like, we want to see results in our time. That's not necessarily the case.
it's not the case.
I think we struggle. I think because of a capitalistic society, like, you're supposed to be rewarded right now.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's what discourages people most in regards to the time frame of seeing results.
That instant gratification. You can have delayed gratification, and they've done those studies with kids with the donut thing, right? You can have more success in your work because you're not thinking this is a short game. You're thinking this is a long game. And that's why you got to do the experiments. You got to do the schools. You have to experiment with alternative forms of economies, like building co-ops in your community, to say that I'm actually planting a seed so that when my children or my grandchildren, they can go and say, we could scale up co-ops. Look at these co-ops, this cooperative ecosystem they did back in the 2020s.
They'll have more skills than us. They'll have more resources than us, and they'll have more vision than us.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But, you know, like you said, people want their flowers now. And, you know, you don't break down a system that's thousands and thousands of years embedded, you know, like the patriarchy, like the white supremacy, like the capitalism that began to fuel that slave trade overnight or in one person's lifespan.